Okay, welcome to the meditation service, and I'd like to start only with our little bell here. This sounds, makes us feel connected. Let that sound go in and through you. We're at a time where the energy is rising in the world. We're opening up to the way we should be acting towards one another, to all races. Our heart goes out to those beautiful people that are marching, spreading the message of oneness with all life, all people. We're opening our hearts, our minds, and our eyes. So our heart goes out to all those people being guided by the great Creator to walk all over this planet, for love to enter the hearts and minds of all people. I'm going to do some chanting, and I'll do a line, and then Louis and our wonderful piano player, Larry. Larry's birthday is the same day as mine. Can you believe that? We're Capricorns. So we have a real affinity to each other. Okay, so we'll start. Open my heart.
Open my heart.
Let only love flow through me.
Let only love flow through me.
Center my soul.
Center my soul.
Upon the path of peace.
Upon the path of peace.
Make of my life
Make of my life
a melody of love.
a melody of love.
God is in all of life.
God is in all of life.
We are all one.
We are all one.
We're going to do that one again. Open my heart.
Open my heart.
Let only love flow through me.
Let only love flow through me.
Center my soul.
Center my soul.
Upon the path of peace.
Upon the path of peace.
Make of my life
Make of my life
a melody of
a
love.
melody of love.
God is in all of life.
God is in all of life.
We are all one. Open my eyes
Open my eyes
to see love before me.
see love before me.
Radiant love,
Radiant love
shining through all.
shining through all.
Make up my life
Make of my life
a melody of
a
love.
melody of love.
God is in all of
God
life.
is in all of life.
We are all one.
We are all one.
Creator of all life.
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 Bring us to the light.
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 Open my heart.
My heart.
Let all love flow through me. Center my soul
Center my soul.
upon the path of peace. Make of my life
My life.
a melody of love.
Melody of love.
God is in all of life. We are all one.
We are all one.
Open my mind.
Open my mind.
Let kind thoughts flow through me.
Kindness flow through me.
Centered in love.
Center in love.
A love with no end.
Love with no end.
Make of my life
Make of my life
a melody of love.
melody of love.
God is in all of life.
All of life.
We are one.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back, for those of you that are back. Yes, we are somewhat or partially back in our regular meetings. We're still restricted to 50 people in the sanctuary, but most of our groups are open for attendance here in the church building. So it's good to have you back, have some good energy coming back this way. And we will have our services this morning, and I think that we'll be moving in a much higher level of awareness as we transcend now the limited views of world thinking. In my youth, at one time, while I was living with my father in Union City, New Jersey, I would go to school, a grammar school in North Bergen, and it was McKinley Grammar School. And to get to it, I had to take a footbridge across 6 lanes of highway. There's a highway there that goes in, feeds into the Lincoln Tunnel, and feeds out also from New York. Those 6 lanes of highway, and it's always really just furious going this way and that way. And McKinley School was on one side of this highway, up on a bluff a little bit. You could actually see the bridge and the highway from certain classrooms in the school. And when I was in the 7th grade, my teacher in the 7th grade was Mrs. Walsh. She was about 40 years old, maybe late 30s, 40. And she came on to the fact that when the public service meter guy would come to McKinley to read the electric meter, he would actually park his truck on the Union City side on the shoulder, get out of the truck, and then he would hopscotch and dodge and jump and leap and freeze and jump and through the 6 lanes of highway to get to the school to do the reading. Now, the initial idea of this was that for him to have gone up and all around, he would lose 20, 25 minutes on his route if he had to have gone all the way around and then go all the way back. So he just decided this is the way he would do it. I thought maybe it wasn't so much that, but maybe he really just enjoyed doing this masterful thing. Once a month, he would risk his life to get the electrical meter reading at McKinley School. And our teacher put the whole class onto it. She said, it's like at the end of this month, was on the same day. She had the whole class go to the windows and said, here, she said, never do anything like this guy is about to do. And she said, he is totally out of his mind. And we'd watch him do this whole dodging, jumping, leaping, freezing, stopping, dodging to get through these 6 lanes of highway and get to the school and do his electrical meter reading. And as it turned out, nobody was aware of this, but it wasn't just the electrical meter reading he was coming to. He had something going on with Mrs. Walsh. So what he would do is he'd stop in the empty lunchroom and have a sticky bun and coffee till she finished her morning class. Then I guess they would meet in one of the basement storage rooms that were always empty. So this story only came out because one day she didn't show up for the morning class. And it was on that day that the public service meter reading guy was supposed to do his reading. We looked out the windows and he had his truck parked over there, but he was like doing this. And then we saw Mrs. Walsh on this side, and she's now going across the 6 lanes of highway to get to him. I guess it was over for her. They were going to just get together. That was it. But she was wearing a very tight skirt that was around her knees. And she was trying to do this dodging, jumping, leaping thing, and then was hit by a semi carrying cows to Oklahoma. And the strange part about the story is that the semi driver didn't know he hit her. She was a very slight woman, didn't know he hit her till he got to Oklahoma and saw her, hung up in his grill. Okay. This was for you a credibility check. At what point in the story did you check out? Did you say, no? No, they didn't use the foot. Okay. All right. Now, you'll probably remember this more than anything you ever get out of Unity. But what it will do is it'll key you back on what I really want to say. It is true that the public service meter guy would come across the highway, really risking his life, to do the meter reading, and she pointed it out to us and said, this guy is out of his mind. That was the complete story. Everything else after that was a credibility check for you. But in saying that, this guy is out of his mind, she was actually making a profound statement that Eckhart Tolle himself makes. And I want to share this with you because it is the essential truth about the transformation between the limited dimension of thinking in the initial stage of consciousness in which we are born and the expanded awareness or level of God consciousness we are moving toward if we are on the spiritual journey. So can I have this first PowerPoint, please? You can read this in his book, Stillness Speaks, on page 23. Artistic creation, sports, dance, teaching, counseling, mastery in any field of endeavor implies that the thinking mind is either no longer involved at all or is at least taking second place. A power and intelligence greater than you and yet one with you in essence takes over. There is no decision-making, processing more. Spontaneous right action happens and you are not doing it. Mastery of life is the opposite of control. You become aligned with the greater consciousness. It acts, speaks, does the works. Can you just capture the essential truth of this? Because this is what we are all about on this spiritual journey. Let's take this back again, please. Artistic creation, sports, dance, teaching, counseling, mastery in any field of endeavor implies that the thinking mind is either no longer involved at all or is at least taking second place. A power and intelligence greater than you and yet one with you in essence takes over. There is no decision-making process anymore. Spontaneous right action happens and you are not doing it. Mastery of life is the opposite of control. You become aligned with the greater consciousness. It acts, speaks, does the works. if nothing else, you realize that heaven is not a separate place that we go to after we drop the body. We will go to a divine experience in life awareness, but it will be only because we have awakened in the process, or we will still incarnate until we awaken in the process, and then and only then are we in charge of the incarnations we're about to undertake. That's the difference. So what is being related is this amazing mastery of life takes place in the now moment, now awareness. And Eckhart Tolle is very much on this. We should think in these terms, though. This inspired, what he's talking about, what takes place in creative activity or inspired creativity. Everybody's had this experience for maybe just a short time. It may have come when you were doing a hobby, pottery or origami, or maybe it was when you were painting. You were doing painting or playing an instrument, or you were in some sport where at some moment you became so enthralled, you became so absorbed that the thought of self doing something dissolved. It was dissolved. The doer and that being done became one. The doer and that which was being done merged, and there was this one awareness. This is what we call, divine inspiration. But really, so we say, okay, if that's the goal, what are we talking about? If that's the goal, if that's the highway of awareness and living, the masters are capable of total inspired living. The difference between most people that are on the journey, they can do this when they are absorbed in their hobby or their instrument or their painting. They can do this. They can be absorbed so totally that they lose this sense of self and separation. But the masters are capable of living in that awareness, regardless of circumstances, regardless of whether they are doing something that they enjoy doing or are involved in doing, or something they really wouldn't enjoy necessarily from the limited ego-centered point of view. They have surrendered to the majesty of the oneness of life. They have done it through spiritual practice. They have found their way into true life. And so nothing perturbs them anymore. There's no way you can move them or scare them or frighten them or anything. They are ultimately one with God. Still here in the world, but not of the world. So that's a lot to take in. Now let's take a look at this next PowerPoint. Can we have this next PowerPoint, please? This is from A New Earth. This is Eckhart Tolle again. You may remember the paradox of time we mentioned earlier. Whatever you do takes time, and yet it is always now. So while your inner purpose is to negate time, your outer purpose necessarily involves future, and so could not exist without time. But it is always secondary. Whenever you become anxious or stressed, outer purpose has taken over, and you've lost sight of your inner purpose. You have forgotten that your state of consciousness is primary, all else is secondary. Look at what is being said here by this master of life who was broken early on in his experience and became one with the reality we refer to as God. Can we have this back again, please? We have an inner purpose. Not only that, we have an inner destiny. Your soul and my soul and every other soul that ever came to life has a destiny of becoming enlightened. To live an enlightened life. To be in the world but not of it, not tossed to and fro by every changing tide of circumstance, but to have the omnipresent awareness of the Creator that gives life and breath. We must come to realize this. You may remember the paradox of time we mentioned earlier. Whatever you do takes time, and yet it is always now. So while your inner purpose is to negate time, your outer purpose necessarily involves future, and so it could not exist without time, but it is always secondary. Whenever you become anxious or stressed, outer purpose has taken over. If you know this, if you catch yourself in this, you are already awakening. You are becoming enlightened. When you start to check in and say, oh, I'm out of sorts, I don't feel good, something's wrong, I'm just irritated, instead of, when you can catch yourself doing that and stop and pause and look and ask yourself, what is it I'm thinking and feeling? What am I doing? Man, you're going to go home. You're going to find God. You're going to find life. So this is what he's talking about. Whenever you become anxious or stressed, outer purpose has taken over, and you lost sight of your divine self. You have forgotten that your state of consciousness is primary. All else is secondary. Being present in the now moment is primary. Everything else is secondary. And so the difference between most people who are casually on the spiritual journey, to them, they have their moments. But to become enlightened, you must be so totally into the present moment that you have, by doing that, negated time. Because Tolle is not talking about clock time. He's talking about psychological time. The time that's in our mind. That I should be someplace else right now. I've got to get going. I've got to hurry. How could I miss doing that? I should have gotten that done before I came here. No, wait a minute. What's going on? But time in our mind, why do I have to get stuck here with this situation or with this traffic? Or why am I still hung up with these people? Where do they come from? Okay, so you've got that and you want to be someplace else. That's the death of humanity. That is the ego-centered consciousness of humanity, the initial state of consciousness that is denying you your divinity. That is your self-betrayal. And at some point we have to be awake enough to become aware of that when it's happening. We have to know, I'm in stress, I don't feel good, I'm anxious, I'm resisting this moment. Don't resist this moment. I don't want to get hung up on time here. I don't want to not give you the really interesting and necessary key to this. See, but here, look at this. I'm being interrupted. I can't take this. So I've got to jump some of this. I'm going to jump away from some of this. There's another PowerPoint or two I've got to jump away from. But I've got to give you the key here, okay? And I hope it shows up in the tithes. All right? This is the key. If you had to pay for this, it'd be really expensive. How do you actually get into living in that enlightened way where you're not hung up in time and these little limited ideas and goals and things that you have set up that are going to cause you stress? How do you get away from that and into living in the moment? Live wholeheartedly for the moment. Whatever the moment is providing, you give yourself to it completely. And you live it the best possible way you can. Whether it's on the job, whether it's in the difficult circumstances, you give yourself wholeheartedly to doing what is required in that moment. Not half-heartedly saying, oh, I'll get through this, or I have to rush through this, or let me get this over with. As soon as those thoughts come in, check it out. You're denying yourself the joy of life. Just say, even if you just try it for a day, learn how to wholly pause, to pause if you're having stress. And say, what am I thinking right now? What am I doing? And just say, let me do this differently. I've got to get this garage cleaned out. I've got to get this done. Why do I think like that? Why don't I just do this as though God and I are doing it together? Because that's really what's happening. Get into it. Really clean that garage the way you've never cleaned it before. Don't leave anything undone. Whatever you have to do, if you have to meet a bunch of people that you're kind of nervous about, just get into it and be with them and share with them and be open to them. Do everything so wholeheartedly. What's going to happen to you? You're going to drop out. You're going to have yourself drop out, till you are living one with the divine intelligence, and it is living through you, and it knows exactly what to do in every given moment. Okay. We're going to share that timeless place. The timeless place. With our Tibetan bowls, we're going to tune into and relax and feel the okayness of being alive. And then when we get to the period of silence, if you don't have a particular meditation technique, you can use this idea. Bring your mind gently back to this idea when you find yourself drifting away. Don't fight your thoughts, just let them come and go. But bring your mind into this reality. Everything I look upon, everything I see, is only God looking back at me. as we go forth from this meditation to those places we occupy in time and space. Let us go forth in the revelation that it is by complete acceptance of the moment as it is and as it is not. However it presents itself, it rises with each of us. It rises with you. And when you rise with it and you give yourself wholeheartedly to living in this moment, you will know what it means to be truly alive. You will live in insight and joy, healing and peace. So take this truth and live it. For this opportunity in every moment, we give thanks. And to this, we say, Amen. Our offering this morning is a little different. We have a basket in the back, I believe. Is it on the back table? Yeah, it's out in the lobby. We have an armed guard there too? Okay. So we will do the offering blessing together, whatever it is you intend to give. Just bring it to mind as we share this offering blessing. I'll say it once and then you can repeat it with me. Divine love is my true life and my conscious destiny. Therefore, I give. Together, please. Divine love is my true life and my conscious destiny. Therefore, I give.
I am in your sacred light. I feel the rays of your life. My heart is open. Oh Lord, let me know your will. I am in your sacred light. I feel the rays of our life. My heart is open. Oh Lord, let me know your will. Let me know your will. Let me know your will.
Thanks for joining us. See you next week. Actually, I won't be seeing you next week because Norm and I are going out of town for a week of R&R. So we'll actually be going to Texas to see.
Shad speaking.
And Shad, my son Shad, Reverend Groverland, Shad, will be speaking at the first service.
Next service. He's speaking at 11.
Oh, he's speaking at 11 today,
Right.
but he's going to be speaking here next week.
Okay.
So, all right.